Hello and welcome to Envision, the webinar series designed exclusively to support your learning journey through women in leadership. My name is Afua Adom and today we'll be talking about building relationships. Now, I may be a leader in my field today, but I wasn't always the best journalist, broadcaster, presenter or anchor. I'm not saying I am the best now, but when I started out, I was shocking, like really bad. I wouldn't even watch myself on TV. Now, as time went on, I would like to think that I got much better, although I'm sure there are a few people on Twitter who would disagree with that. But there are two things I have always been, and that's black and female. That intersection has more than influenced the arc of my working life and has very much affected the way in which I build relationships within my industry. It's become so important as a black woman to build the right nurturing relationships. Gloria Steinem, the world-renowned feminist, journalist and activist, once explained, the story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist or to any one organisation, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights. And in the words of Hillary Clinton, human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. Let us not forget that amongst those rights are the right to speak freely and the right to be heard. No, those are two great quotes, but I would like to put to you how many women out there, first of all, feel that they can speak freely in the workplace, and second of all, feel that they are heard. Now, I know I've just said in the workplace, but that may not be everyone's reality right now. I'm at home in front of my bookcase, as I have been for 18 months. Loads of us were forced to work from home by the pandemic, and working patterns have changed for a lot of us. Now, some of you may be watching this on the sofa, in your home office, at your kitchen table, in a shared workspace or back in the office. Now, at first there was an element of novelty to working at home, I think. Who didn't have a sneaky lie in at least once or stream a bit of Netflix during lunch? But when the novelty wore off, it seems that women have borne the brunt of a bad deal when it comes to employment and, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, I'm sure a lot of us felt we were just glad to still have a job when so many people were being furloughed and made redundant. And even though sometimes it feels impossible, we were happy to just keep the money coming in at this crucial time. And I think a lot of women are especially afraid to say that now we are ready to move on. We're ready to start thinking about our careers again. And a lot of us are feeling like we're having to rebuild relationships with colleagues that we may not have felt so connected to for a while. Some of us might not even have met those colleagues if we started new roles during the pandemic. For both employers and employees, it takes a certain level of emotional intelligence all round for us to be able to say what we really want and convey that in a manner that's going to be received well, and that applies now more than ever. I remember when I started working for an African news channel back in 2015. Now, I confided in another black woman who I assumed would be an ally that my dream job was to be on screen. I started out as a producer. And she said to me, "You are way too dark, and they will never put someone as dark as you on screen. This is an African news channel." I remember feeling so shocked that someone of the same complexion as me could say this. Now, this could have easily gone two ways. I could have risen to that stereotype of the angry black woman and screamed in her face, but I chose not to because I knew I have to work with this woman for goodness knows how long. So I calmly said to her, "That may be your story, but it's not going to be mine." And doing that was so powerful for me in two ways. First of all, it completely diffused the situation and it allowed us to continue working together, which we did for another 7 years. Now we are really close friends. I had to display that emotional intelligence through my shock and anger to react proportionately and keep working with her. It also spurred me on massively to aim high, and I certainly proved her wrong. Now, when she sees me on BBC, ITV, CNN or Al Jazeera, she has to swallow her words, and I can't lie, that feels amazing. It also gave me the chance to educate her on why what she said was wrong. Now, in the workplace, it's really important for us to raise awareness against bias, and that takes building relationships and takes emotional intelligence. Now, have you ever called someone out over out and out racism? Have you ever pulled someone up over a slightly dodgy remark that's sexist, like women drivers not being able to park? That might be deemed as slightly offensive. Now, the former out and out racism and something that's overt, perhaps the use of the N-word, is much easier to call out. That's something that's just mildly offensive. That's easier to condemn. But subtle hints of racism and sexism that we perhaps would let go are just as damaging if they're happening. We have to be able to call them out. The murder of George Floyd in May 2020 was horrendous, and it was impactful. That was an out and out act of racial violence. Now, the pain that followed George Floyd's death felt different from any other news story I have covered before. Now, I've covered the Black Lives Matter movement in newsrooms since 2014, after the death of Eric Garner, the death of Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, countless others. What happened afterwards, though, was also tough. Now, it was great to be offered these platforms to speak about what happened and what should happen next in terms of talking about diversity and inclusion here in the UK. But I often felt like a token, and I often wondered to myself, am I on this channel because I'm a black, dark-skinned female journalist who can talk about race and ticks a box on this particular occasion, or am I on this channel simply because I'm a good journalist? I still have those questions today. Now, lots of companies came out to support the ideas of diversity and inclusion in those days and weeks after the death of George Floyd, and especially during Black History Month last year. They rightly recognised the need for change, but it's much more than the need it's much more than a need for change, and it's much more than let's hire more black people. It's not just inviting black people to have a seat at the table, but asking them to be part of the decision-making process to see who's at the table in the first place, or involving black people in the building of the table. You have to choose to challenge the status quos of company makeups to make it truly representative for everyone. And that's all about building relationships and having the right conversations. Now, as someone who's always functioning with the intersection of being black and female, it's really powerful to see women, and black women especially, being decision makers and in positions of power. As they say, you cannot be what you do not see. And that is really, really important for colleagues and for leaders alike. So I've talked about tackling big racism and condoning obvious acts of racism, which can be relatively easy to do. But it's the everyday racism and, of course, sexism and misogyny, or unconscious bias, as I like to call it, that we can and should always play a part in deconstructing. Now, the only way to do that is by calling out to combat it. It literally is that simple. Just call it out. Now, being anti-racist and an anti-racism ally isn't easy. It's called doing the work, and it will take something from you every single day. You'll have to have difficult conversations, and some of these will have to take place in your work environment. Effective communication is key here. The journey towards communicating starts with us honestly regarding ourselves. It's easy to think that all the problems of the world when it comes to bias are external, but we can and must seek out the propensity of injustice that lurks within every single one of us and work towards eradicating it. Now, this is not about beating ourselves up over the things we may have said or thought and then becoming stuck in this vicious cycle of guilt. It's about admitting that we have to make changes. We have to consider how our own prejudices prevent us from acting justly and fairly. Now, we can't address biases until we admit that we have them ourselves. That's why they're unconscious. We don't necessarily know that we have them. And then, rather than indulging in the shame that may bring, we need to recognize our biases, and we should choose to move on and up, holding ourselves to a higher standard of behaviour that, of course, promotes equality. Systemic injustices and practices are hard to call out, certainly. It's so ingrained in society that we tend to just shrug our shoulders and say, well, that's just the way things are. It's going to take persistence, patience, righteous anger, and a willingness to make sacrifices. Like I said, it's doing the work. Now, institutions like the church, the police service, the prison service, the media, legal systems, or the NHS will not be changed by one letter or one email or one social media post, but by sustained conversation, letter and protest over a period of time. We must use all our honesty, might and willpower and collaborate with others to instigate change over a period of time. That's how we call out unconscious bias. Now, overcoming it, that's a different kettle of fish. I don't have all the answers for that. The only advice that I would give when overcoming unconscious bias is really very boring. It's simply continue to be yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be. That's what I do. Now, I was once told by a black male TV producer that my hair, beautiful as it is, was not serious enough for mainstream TV. However, the next day, I was booked to be part of a documentary for NBC television in America on the royal family, completely proving him wrong. Now, I've been told by major broadcasters in this apparent post-Black Lives Matter era that I've been overused on their channels when they have the same white male faces on every week. So I simply stopped making myself available to them and went to others. Now, this kind of unconscious bias is rife. Not understanding black women's hair, saying that black people have been overused on TV. And those who perpetuate that probably don't even know why it's so wrong. Now, this is where we need to encourage other people to do the work. You call it out and then you encourage them to unpack the reasons why they view the world consistently through this white and often male gaze. And that's what leads them to have these attitudes. That's how you overcome unconscious bias, I think, along with working hard, having a great attitude and finding joy in everything that you do. All those things will prove to others you're just as good, if not better than them. Keep going simply for you despite all these challenges. Now, in my industry, in the media industry, I think one of the most common misconceptions, and it's something that I hear every day, especially from younger women coming into the industry, is that women don't help other women, that there's so much competition. As Madeleine Albright famously said when introducing Hillary Clinton back in 2016, she said, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other." And I thoroughly agree. I think we've all taken that to heart. Now, I've been recommended for jobs in panels such as judging the Royal Television Society Awards thanks to broadcaster Charlene White. My first appearance on Good Morning Britain back in 2018 was thanks to one of my best friends, Karen Chambers, who was a producer on that show. Women help other women all the time. I think there's a huge conception about women in leadership that we're very competitive and that we're emotional about conflict also. In fact, I think that's not always the case. And let's remember, men can be just as emotional as us, if not more so. Now, in my industry as a black woman, initially there is a real sense of competition and a real sense that you can't necessarily be your authentic self and you can't show emotions because, like I said earlier, you might be chalked up as the angry black woman. And there's also a sense that we worry about our positions because we don't think they're permanent, because there's not very many other dark-skinned black women out there like myself on TV, and you think to yourself, look, I have to be the only one. There aren't that many opportunities around, so let me hold on to this position by the skin of my teeth and by my fingernails. Now, I don't think that's the case so much now. I think that was the case perhaps 10 or 15 years ago, but things are much better now. Now, instead of always having to be asked to the table, we've built our own, and that's been so powerful for women in the industry. So like I said, I think there's a misconception that women don't help other women, and I think that's not true. Now, for us to be able to truly collaborate and celebrate with other women, I think we've got to be able to celebrate ourselves and our achievements first. Now, so much has been lauded about the MVP, most valuable player, and of course I'm talking about Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, in her acceptance speech as Madam Vice President-elect, she said, "I may be the first, but I won't be the last." Now, the glass ceiling that she has shattered is worth it, not only for her, but the women who will come behind her. Now, like I said, Harris's achievements were widely celebrated. Everyone was talking about it on social media, and rightly so. She's the first Black American to run for vice president on a major party ticket and win, in addition to being the first Asian American and the first woman of color to run for vice president or president and win, and the first Black American to serve as vice president. Now, I was so happy to be one of the many voices on TV, radio and social media congratulating Madam Vice President Kamala Harris on her achievements. But I think especially we as British people can be shy about celebrating our own achievements. We'll do it for others instead of for ourselves. And like I said, unless we celebrate ourselves, we can't celebrate others. So that got me thinking about my own list of achievement and my own list of firsts. So I'm the first female in my generation of my family to be born in Scotland. I'm the first woman in my family to get a first in my degree, so 2 firsts there. I'm the first female journalist in my family, and surprisingly, I'm the first Black woman to edit Black Hair magazine, a magazine aimed at Black women that before I got there was going for 13 years without a single Black woman on staff. I know, but I was super proud of that. Okay, so these aren't quite presidential level achievements, but they're definitely things to be proud of. Now, this is a good time to think about your own first. Have a think about things that you are proud of. If we don't think about our own personal journeys and celebrate our own firsts, the glass ceilings that we have shattered, there's many things that we've been the first people at doing. How can we recognize another woman's achievements? By recognizing the challenges that we may have, that makes us more sympathetic to other women. And that's really, really, really valuable. It makes us better leaders. We're able to empathize with our workforce and manage conflict more effectively. Being proud of how far you have come can give you the energy boost that you need to keep going. My humble beginnings always give me the energy I need to keep on keeping on. So celebrate your first, celebrate yourself, and that helps you celebrate other women. And I think that is so valuable, and also completely shatters those misconceptions that women don't help other women and we're constantly in competition. That's not the case. Now, this is the part in the webinar where I impart my final parting wisdom to you all. What advice would I give to female leaders? Well, I like to think of it as the 5 C's, and they are confidence, connection, challenge, cheer, and couch. Yes, I said couch. Okay, the first of this, confidence. A really easy one, I think. Be confident in your role and why you have it. Be confident in what you're doing. Be confident in the position of leadership that you are in. You are there for a reason. Never doubt yourself and always put your best foot forward. Imposter syndrome can be real, but we need to banish that out. Banish those voices. You are where you're supposed to be. Now, your confidence in yourself and your abilities will shine through, and people will trust your skills, and that's really, really important. I always apply this. So when I'm on TV, I'm always confident in whatever I'm saying, even if I'm mispronouncing a town, a person's name, or I'm not really sure that 90% of this happens here, there, or anywhere. If I say it with confidence, people will believe me. Now, the second one is connection. Always make the effort to have a great connection with people. That can be really, really easy. Ask them about their day, what they watched on TV last night, what podcasts they're listening to, have they read a good book. Find out their likes and dislikes and find common ground. Makes it a whole lot easier to manage people, and also to get those people that you manage to open up to you when something is wrong or they have any issues. If they feel they can trust you, they will open up to you more. And that is how you have an effective working team. Now, the third one is challenge. Be happy to challenge others, but be prepared for them to challenge you. Challenge the status quo when it comes to unconscious bias, when it comes up at every turn. And be prepared to innovate. Challenging yourself, challenging other people, challenging your workplace and your situation brings about innovation. And that is a great thing. Be open to challenge and be open to people innovating as well, because of course it works both ways. The fourth one is cheer. Smile. Be positive at work if you can. We know that every day is not a good day. Some days we're up for it and some days, frankly, we are not. But try and stay positive and this becomes infectious. Happy people love working with happy people. And the fifth one is couch. Exhale. Rest. Take couch time when you need it. Flop on that sofa and relax. Make sure that your work-life balance is the way it should be and it's not skewed in one way or the other. Do not be afraid to rest. Do not be afraid to switch off that phone and close that laptop, because rest is so important for your physical and mental health. As they say, you cannot pour from an empty cup.